Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions. With your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of Joy Sparkers. We're looking at a band, group, person, I'm not really sure where this sits, called LCD Soundsystem. To me, it kind of feels like the name of an electronica group, techno of some sort, which makes me think it might be one person, but it's also 9 minutes long, which seems to be a bit at ends with my idea, the concept I have typically of techno music. So we're going to dive into this and see what's going on. The song is called Dance Yrself Clean. It's a very quiet track so far.
Sometimes friends are mean.
I really like the different sounds being utilized to create the ambience in the track.
Present company, excluded in every way.
It's interesting how much louder that bass swell is than anything else.
Killing it with close inspection, killing it can only make it worse. It sort of makes it breed. Present company, accepting presently, we all expect the worst. It works just like a need. Present company, excluded in the night.
It's interesting, there's almost no melody. Even the vocals, which are doing the most melodic part, lean a little bit into spoken word. Okay. Yeah, some really cool playfulness right there in the rhythm. There's still some really interesting mixing as far as the volume goes, though. Yeah, that little vibrato falsetto is nice. that synth solo. It added a little bit of melody I think has been missing. There's something very infectious about the way that he sings. This whole song is built upon the same foundation. I don't think anything at the bottom of this changes at all. What? Dude, those claps, they are wide. Huh. See, with yesterday's Between the Buried and Me, I felt immediately, not too far in, what made it a song that would fit the Joy Sparkers theme. This one, I'm not so sure. It is dancey, I'll give it that. It has a positive energy to it, but yeah, this one doesn't quite spark joy in me, which is fine. We're all different. We all have our own, biases and what we enjoy out of music. I will honestly be surprised if we don't get a single song this week that is more of a downer that might still bring joy to somebody. This one just it doesn't bring me joy in particular. But I think the more interesting thing is that I can't like unless it's the danciness to it. It is at its heart a very danceable techno track. And I suppose that that in and of itself could bring joy to somebody. And maybe there's something about the lyrics that bring joy to people. But just overall, joy is not really what I got out of this. It's just to me at least it's sort of inoffensive. I wouldn't say that there's any part of it that really stood out to me that was emotionally interesting, but I wouldn't say I walked away from it upset or anything like that. But as far as an emotional range goes, me and Joy, we were not doing that one for this track. But let's dig into this and look at it from more of a critical perspective and see some of the cool things that are going on here. One thing I do want to point out is that the entire song is built off of the same foundation. We have that really low bass swell, the boom, boom, and we get that sort of back and forth vamping idea there. And then there's some light rhythmic stuff going on, and then the vocals. That takes up like the first 3 minutes of the track, and it is prevalent through the entire track. It is there even at the most filled out section. That is still lying underneath it all. And it's an interesting idea, an interesting concept. So much so that I've actually used it as a theme for a composition jam a few months ago, was to write a song where there was a static part throughout the entire track. I personally don't think it scales very well. I think it works for shorter tracks. 9 minutes of doing the same thing is a bit much for me, unless, like I've mentioned before, I can see that artistic angle. Maybe the song is about being stuck in a rut or stuck in a cycle, and it makes sense to utilize the cyclical idea of a single concept underpinning an entire song. But just for my casual listening, I don't think the idea typically scales very well, and I don't think it did here either. I think the repetition of the idea and the singularity of the scope ended up undermining some of the cool elements of the song, and introduced elements that I found to be a bit I don't want to say boring because that is brings like its own negative connotations, but I was wishing for something else to happen, for the song to evolve into something else, just to provide a little bit of contrast, and it didn't. And I do want to point out that that is completely subjective. That is how I wished the song had went. I don't think it would have been improved overall for everybody if it had introduced contrast in a second part to it. I would have just enjoyed it more. But I do think that they utilize this one idea in the best way they could for 9 minutes by introducing a section that sort of contrasts it with width and depth rather than anything musical. Width and depth are kind of musical, but by changing up any of the musical elements, the actual notes being written. So they do provide some contrast in that element. We get the volume boost, we get the extra voices, we get the extra width. There is definitely two parts to this song, and I don't think anybody would argue against that. It's just the two parts share a lot of commonality between them. But yeah, so we start out with this underlying thing, and I actually mentioned right from the start that the mix was interesting because that low, almost tuba-like sound is so much louder than everything else. In fact, I think the vocals were the quietest part here. Even some of the ambient stuff, like uh, just random clattering or what's that percussive instrument? It's like a stick with beads around it, and you like spin it, and something on the inside hits the beads as it spins. It makes this clattering noise. I wish I could remember what that instrument's called. Anyways, yeah, we have all these interesting voices, and I do want to bring that up as a positive. I think in the song is the use of so many different sounds. Even if they're only used once or twice, I do think it's interesting. As I've mentioned before, with a lot of electronic music is just the ability to utilize so many different voices, even just once or twice, and to provide a varied array of timbres and textures to a song. And this song is no different. There's a lot of really cool things being utilized in here that help set it apart from other tracks. Um, and they're used in interesting ways. Usually in some sort of pocket of space. There's a lot of pockets in this song where there isn't a lot going on, at least in the quieter sections. And these little samples are just tossed in there to fill the space, and it seems random and nonsensical to me, but I'm more more than welcome to be told in the comments if there is some sort of rhyme or reason to it. To me, it just seems like they were going through a sample database, or maybe they have their own sounds that they've created. They've recorded instruments they enjoy, and they're just like, yeah, this one fits, and then just drag it into the gap, and drag that one into the gap, and drag this other one in the gap. So you get these different sounds, and it keeps things feeling novel and a bit new and unique in that sense. Sort of like, what sound are they going to use to fill this space next? But yeah, that's really cool. I will never not talk about that. The more voices in a song, usually the better, unless you're going for explicitly going for something of a simplistic nature. Um, but yeah, so this like I said, the ambient tones, this bass tone, everything is louder than the vocals. And I turned my own volume up a couple of times. I was tempted to turn up y'all's volume as well, and I'm glad I didn't because I guess it's about halfway in, maybe about 4 minutes in. I think 3.5. We hit the big section, and it comes in and it punches, and it is loud, and it has even louder accents to it. There's this really high, almost like the sound of Pong on the Atari when the ball hit the paddle. It's just like this ping, this really high pitched pinging sound. Um, and it cuts through everything, and it is in every bar. And I actually had to turn my volume down because of it. It was beginning to irritate me. And it hurt a little bit. It's very loud. I don't, all this is about the mix, and I don't understand the mix to this song at all. Uh, I would say the least interesting parts of the song have the most amount of volume. The only difference to this, or the only exception to this, is that lead synthesizer part that shows up in the louder section. It dominates everything. But the vocals, which I do believe that this is a vocal heavy song, there is a good portion of the track, maybe about 50% of it, where there is not much going on at all. A couple of percussive elements, we have the little bass, the tuba sound going off, and then the vocals. That's really it. It's the only thing driving those sections. There's easily at least 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes worth of sections to this song where the vocals are the spotlight, despite not being the spotlight in the mix. They're the only thing that's really moving. And like I've mentioned in the past, usually you're going to create simpler works when you want the vocals to be more prominent because the lyrics are important to the track. You don't want the lyrics to be overshadowed or to be covered up by any of the stuff the music's doing. And there are some really interesting lyrics in here as far as wordsmanship goes. Wordsmanship? Being a wordsmith. just utilizing the language in interesting and unique ways with wordplay and rhyming and puns and all that kind of stuff. There's some really nice lines in here, and that mixed with the fact that we have extremely simple music in most of it, or even downplayed music in some sections, really makes me think the lyrics are key, and then they do everything they can to hide the lyrics. The vocals, like I said, are usually one of the quietest parts of the mix. Um, it really, it kind of astounds me. Usually, when I'm talking about the production of electronic music, I'm usually praising it. And I don't know if this is electronic or not. I'm getting the idea that it's electronic music, but for all I know, everything in here is created with, live instruments. For all I know, it's guitars. There's just assuming that this is 2010. Yeah, we definitely had the technology to be shaping even something like a guitar into some of these sounds. So I don't know. It could be electronica, it could be not, but it sounds like it's me, so I'm going to approach it like that. Whenever I've talked about the production of electronic music in the past, it's usually praising it. Like when we checked out Igloo Ghost last week. There's just production is so tightly intertwined with a lot of electronica music because the music itself is created in the same environment as the production goes. It's not like rock or country or classical or jazz where you record live instruments and then you tweak them and the production is done there. The production and the music creation are done hand in hand at the same, well, not necessarily at the same time, but in the same environment. They're both done in the computer, in the audio workstation. And I don't know if that is why we have such a link between electronic music and strong production, but it is there, and I've noticed that, and I'm pretty sure that might have something to do with it. But yeah, this just goes against everything that I kind of view electronic music as being, and in that sense, it's a bit experimental. Maybe it could be seen as a prog in some sort, but it yeah, it challenges my views on this kind of music and does so in a way that makes me analyze not just how I view the music, but why I view the music the way I do. Why do I always think that production is strong in electronic music? Why do I think that because the vocals have interesting lines and that there's not much musicality going on around it, that they need to be elevated? Um, and that's good. That's one of the best things about experimental music. Anything that pushes against the grain, does its own thing, goes against industry standards. It is there to challenge our preconceived notions about said thing. In this case, it's a genre of music. But the end result, in this case, is that I'm not enjoying the music as much as I think I might have, especially in the heavier section, because I feel like it really could have come through as a nice contrast that I ended up not getting too much contrast from because I had to turn it down because of that one tone that just stood out and just it was painful to listen to. It's almost too loud, especially against everything else. And when I turned it down, I couldn't even hear the lyrics anymore and some of the softer stuff. I mean, it's an interesting mix that I think ruined my enjoyment of the song, possibly for the opportunity to ask me questions about how I perceive music, the experimental nature of it. And it's just I don't know where I stand on that. I don't. I appreciate the experimental aspect. I will never say that we should stop experimenting. I will never say that there's such a thing as a bad experimentation. I might say that an experimental idea may or may not have worked. But again, that's subjective. What is its goals? What goals do I perceive it having? Without having spoken to the composer or the producer myself, I don't know what their intent was with this type of mix. It might not have been experimental at all. It may have been thematic. It may have been artistic to go along with the lyrics. I don't know. But I do know that on a first time listen, my reaction to the mix in this song is very negative, and I do believe it impacted my appreciation for the song. That does not mean that it is a bad mix. It does not mean it is a bad song. I'm sure there are some people who might have listened to this for the first time and just had their mind blown, slack jawed. What am I listening to, and why haven't I heard this before? I'm not in that camp, but I'm sure there are people in that camp, and that is perfectly fine. Everybody listens to music differently. Um, and I really did not, when I was listening to the song, I was really trying to find a lot of stuff to talk about because I did not want to talk too much about the mix, but to me, it is a strong aspect of my reaction. It colored my entire first listen to this song with negativity. So I feel like as much as I didn't want to spend so much time on it, it was imperative that I did because it is such a core part of this. Um, and I think that might be it because I covered. Oh no, I didn't cover the vocals. The vocals are interesting. From what I could hear, I wasn't a big fan of the softer section. Like I said, it kind of veered into spoken word, which actually created a bit of a. I would say if we were to have a scale of rhythmic versus melodic, these vocals would be 60% rhythmic, 40% melodic. Uh, Almost 50-50, almost right down the middle, but a little bit leaning towards rhythmic elements. There are some notes. It does create a sense of melody, especially against the absence of it, having only the singular tuba sounds and some percussive elements under it. It is the only melodic adjacent idea, so it's going to get shoehorned into that in my ears. But there's also more of a rhythmic, almost spoken nature to it. The tones themselves, the pitches, do seem to be specifically picked, and it does create a bit of a melodic wave. But I don't feel like that's the core aspect of it, and it creates an opening section that is almost devoid of melodic components. I think it would work if they had went full rhythmic and maybe went into full spoken word and did a bit of a poetry opening there at the beginning and maybe injected a little bit of melody under it. I think it would have worked if they went full melody and utilized it as the primary melody line to inject a little bit of energy into the section. But as it stands, it just feels weird. It doesn't really do either job extremely well. And again, all of this is just my opinion. It could be the purposeful intent. Maybe what I'm talking about is exactly what LCD Soundsystem wanted me to feel and hear when I checked it out. In that case, mission success. But the second section, though, when he went into the falsetto and started doing these really wide vibratos, some of these higher notes, the super long held out note, it went on full display that this dude has fantastic breath control, fantastic control over all of his vocal stuffs. That's going to be the best you get out of me. I'm not a vocal coach. um, yeah, and he has this nice wide range, not just in the notes he can hit, but also his technique. And it's exceptional. I really would like to hear more of a traditional vocal delivery, or I guess I should say vocal composition from this singer, because I think there's some phenomenal stuff. I think he's a really great singer that it just didn't showcase in this song, and again, could be entirely intentional. It could also be the purpose or like the draw of LCD Soundsystem. Maybe there is no song that he's done under this label, under the LCD Soundsystem, um, where he's really gone full on vocal display. But yeah, he sounds like a great vocalist, and that had me intrigued. Especially since I kind of felt that it was more of a non-trained person at the beginning, just kind of doing the spoken word with a little bit of aimed pitching in there to create a small sense of melody. It wasn't showing anything off, is what I'm saying. So yeah, I think those are my thoughts. The vocalist intrigued me. There's a lot of variety in the timbres, which I appreciate, but the song overall just did not work for me, and a lot of that comes from the mix and the repetition. But this could also just be a bad first time listen for me personally. Like I said, I'm sure some people in here, this might be the first time and they're just like, what is this dude talking about? That was phenomenal. I got to dig into these guys right now. Yeah, 100%. Go for it. I do not want to, I do not pretend to be some sort of musical authority. I'm just, I'm just a regular old dude using some music theory to talk about some music. And I have my own biases and tastes in music as well. They're going to color my experiences just like they would anyone else. Uh, but like I said, it's very possible that there could be another LCD sound system track that I enjoy. It could be possible that somebody explains this to me from their point of view, why they enjoy it, what about it might bring them joy, what about it. Maybe I missed something very key to my enjoyment. Just glossed right over it on a first time listen, or maybe it's hidden a bit deeper and I wasn't going to get it on a first time listen. But as of right now, I'm walking away from this one a little confused, but optimistic that I can be given some info and reevaluate this, come at it on a second listen, possibly on my own time, and appreciate it. Have a newfound appreciation based on somebody else's point of view or perspective or some extra information, which is where you guys come in. Hit me up with your thoughts on LCD Sound System's Dance Yrself Clean. Let me know what you thought about this one, if you already enjoyed this song or if you love it. Let me know what about it speaks to you. I'm definitely open to other perspectives and point of views, so I can expand my own. When you're done commenting, you can head up to the description box, and there's a link for Linktree. In there, you'll come to this menu right here. Has everything related to the channel, such as Discord, Twitter, Patreon, merch, email, a bunch of stuff. It's all in there. Any way that you wanted to get in contact with me or support the channel or join any of the auxiliary communities to the channel. I don't like auxiliary is not the right word. I don't know. Any of the communities related. Yeah, we don't need a qualifier. They're just communities, right? Above that, the description box, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC. We also have today's special selection that dropped 3 minutes ago. You can check that one out or drop by tomorrow. Until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.